Good morning, good morning. I'm so grateful to be here today. It has been so wonderful to be with all of you and just with the energy of the vibration of nature. And Reverend Linda asked me to come teach this metaphysical healing tools workshop. And for those, most of you know me as Dr. Debbie online, but I am a chiropractor by schooling. I also do acupuncture and functional medicine and a lot. I'm sorry.
Oh,
And
sticky things.
And sticky things, that's right, the acupuncture. But along my own personal healing journey, it really was the metaphysical tools that made the biggest difference on my own healing. I went through several really, really challenging, extremely low bottoms in my own healing path. I struggled with severe depression for over 12 years, and I was crippled in bed. It was so, so bad. And I tried everything that I knew. I went to all the healing professionals, both Western medicine and traditional, and nobody could help my brain work. And I tried everything, and I was very strict with their protocols, and I had everything laid out, and I committed to their protocols with the hope of getting better, and I couldn't get better. And I could not, I would see everybody out in life happy and living a normal life, and I just couldn't get there, and I tried everything. And so there was a night, and 3 o'clock in the morning, I made this deal with God. I said, all right, God, I am so in this crippled state. If you teach me how to climb out of this place, I will spend the rest of my life teaching others to do the same. Mm-hmm. And then I discovered certain metaphysical energetic principles a few weeks later that helped give me the shift in mindset and also a shift in my perspective around energy medicine, around spiritual healing that completely transformed my whole life. And that it was from that contract with God. So when you make a promise with God, you gotta follow through. And so a lot of the tools that I will teach today have been on my own journey, both through the metaphysical, spiritual exposure I got at First Unity through Reverend Linda. Some of these, I went to her early workshops in my late 20s, 20 years ago, and I would see certain things. And so I was always really drawn to metaphysical energy healing tools, but also shamanistic and more Native American spiritual healing tools too. Because my mother, when I was born, was so, God bless her soul, so physically crippled, and she was in bed for over 40 years before she entered a nursing home in her mid-50s. And so she really didn't get to live the type of life that we got to live. And I saw, but her heart was so huge. She had this huge shining heart, and she loved people, she loved animals, she loved handicapped children. She was in the, before she got really sick, she was going for her master's in special education. She was a teacher. And then, but I saw that, it made me question a lot of things about God, watching my mother so horribly compromised with such a beautiful heart. But it taught me the power of the heart, and it taught me the power of faith and our connection to spirit. And so a lot of these tools combine those two things of how do we heal ourselves from an energetic perspective, from a spiritual perspective, and then in terms of my other side of my expertise is in the human body. I always had this really sacred relationship with the human body because my mom was so compromised. I would be outside all the time, and I would run around the block at 5 years old, and I would feel my heartbeat. And I realized that there was this spiritual, sacred energy inside my body. And it was also at 5 that I saw cells under the microscope. My uncle is a master healer in Princeton, New Jersey. And he looks at cells under the microscope and then all the nutritional influences and whatever. So I saw this on the big screen, and I was at 5 mesmerized, not just by the cell and all the things and the fluid behind it, but the light behind the cell. And I was like, and I knew in that moment that I would spend the rest of my life figuring out all the cells and all the background of the cells, but also what was the light. And so that how many years later, 43 years later, I'm still on that pursuit of not only connecting to that energy of the light, but also teaching people how do we align our cells, our bodies, and our brains with all the tools that we have available. Not just with the nutritional piece, even though that's a huge piece and a great love of mine because it impacts the cell, but also the energetic principles, because the cell is our first incarnation. It's the first incarnation of divine universal energy as us. And the majority of that cell is energy and frequency. So if those energies and frequencies are imbalanced, then the cell that's made is not the optimal cell, and then everything in our body is the cells. And so my goal in my healing work really involves how do we remove the blocks, both from the energetic and the imbalances. How do we help our energetics align? And then how do we give our body exactly what it needs to create that perfect cell? Because ultimately, if we figure that out, almost any symptom can be greatly decreased or completely eliminated. And then whatever diagnosis has been given will be gone, technically, right? And so my goal is how do I help the body align, but also the energetics, especially the connection between energy and emotion. That one principle, when I was so sick in bed and I had given up on everything because I couldn't get better, I tried everything. The only thing, I had to shift my mindset as to what could I do? What could I do in that compromised state? I couldn't compare myself to anybody. I couldn't, I just had to, what could I do? Well, I could listen to spiritual recordings on my phone and I could drink water. That was really and call people that I knew. That's really all I could do in that compromised state. One of those recordings was an Abraham Hicks recording around emotion. And before that, I loved cells. I grew up in science my whole life. I have a triple undergraduate degree from Eckerd College, one in biochemistry, and I used to do tons of research in the labs. I loved science. I loved the rigor of the research. I love all those pieces, but it couldn't get me better. So I was in a position where I had to almost abandon all my love and my focus on the physical side, and then I had to connect completely to the spiritual, energetic side. But that connection, that shift in mindset between that emotion was not just about neurotransmitters. It wasn't just about positive new thought. Even though they're greatly helpful, I'm not saying there's not an influence, but once I made the connection in my mind from that Abraham Hicks recording, that emotion was energy that we could shift, that saved my life. That's actually the foundation of my book. My book is all about metaphysics. This is how do we heal emotionally traumatized brain, body from a metaphysical perspective of vibrational frequency. Because if we can increase the frequency of our cells, which include our thoughts, what we eat, all the things, if we increase the vibrational frequency of us, not only will we physically heal, but we will emotionally heal. Okay, and so these were the 77 tools that I used to get better. And also my life stories at the back. There is a sequel coming, 2.5 months. In 2.5 months, that's the goal, is to launch it mid-January. But the sequel is a little bit rawer and realer, and it goes even deep in, like, how do you really, if you're really in the blackness, how do you shift incrementally out? So anyway, I'm excited, a little nervous about launching something so raw and real, but very excited too, because I've been thinking about it for a long time, 12 years coming. The work, I discovered this book in my early 20s. It is Hands of Light. Barbara Brennan was a physicist, and she loves physics. And people don't realize that energy medicine and metaphysics is about frequency, and that is a physics science concept. The technology to be able to record it is very expensive, and that's why it's not mainstream, and because of some of the politics, it's not really out in society. But the frequency healing of Barbara Brennan, she was a NASA scientist, and so what she did was she became a counselor, and during her sessions she started to see these colorful patterns emitting from her patients. Let me see if they're in here somewhere. And so she kept seeing these color patterns emitting from people with similar emotional states. And so she's like, well, what is this? Why is this happening? And that was what brought her in to energy healing. And so here it is. these were the different energetic patterns off of Barbara Brennan's patients as a counselor. And so that brought her into this idea of healing. And one of the things I love about her work, her work is channeled. All right, so I forget what's the name of her main spirit guide, but here's this extreme scientist with a spiritual helper. So I realized, like, Seth, is it Seth? It might be a different name, but that's one of the big ones. But it makes me feel not alone, because I have spiritual helpers. So if she's a super scientist that is into science, and I'm not alone in this kind of category of this extreme life of science, which I love, and then the whole spiritual metaphysical world that really saved my life in so many ways. And so I love this book. I've had like 25 copies in my lifetime because I keep dragging around and losing it. But fabulous work. Another thing I love about it is that she includes this idea that we have spirit helpers that are helping to heal us. I don't do a lot of, my work is not necessarily Reiki based, but we'll talk a little bit more about all the tools. But I love this idea because as I'm working with people in any realm, I'm getting information constantly in terms of my intuitive gift. I don't always verbalize it, but it's that extreme gift that really helped me the most when I was so sick. But even as I go, the precision of how I create and help heal, really, the precision of that, and whenever I look back and think about it, there's always a huge scientific piece of the information that I'm given. Especially when I'm extra sick and I can see the pictures of what to do next faster than I can cerebrally think it. Phenomenal work. I love her work. I love the pictures in this book. And but she does a great job of emphasizing this flow. She even brings in the brain, which I love. And so my work around how do I help align the body with the chiropractic and all the tools really is how do I increase the efficiency of that healing force through our body? How do I figure out where the blocks are? And how do I develop very precise wellness programs to help align the energies and remove the blocks? Because if I can do that, the speed that people can heal even astounds me sometimes. And there are things that go away so fast sometimes that even I am incredibly impressed. And so even recently, in the last 6 weeks. And so anyway, great pictures showing the chakras, the flow of the energy, the blocks in the energy field. And so anyway, phenomenal work, in terms of the blocks. I've gotten to that point intuitively where I can see the blocks and muscle test. I'm going to show you some demonstrations in a second. But phenomenal work. There's some excellent educators. Donna Eden and Dr. Melanie Smith are phenomenal educators in energy medicine. But this was really the foundation of how kind of these gifts developed, because I couldn't get better. And I knew that there was an energetic piece that I was missing that I could help to heal myself. At that time, I had no money. I had no money at all, and I knew I couldn't go to a natural medicine practitioner because I didn't have anything to pay them with. And so so for 12 to 15 years, I spent literally laying in bed. I would buy used books off of eBay by the masters in all the natural medicine fields, and I would read them because that was the only thing I could do. And that was one thing I could do, was lay in bed and read. And I learned, ironically, from the cell perspective, that all the masters in the field were doing the same foundational things. They were just tweaking them a little bit around inflammation healing and stress healing and nervous system healing. A lot of people don't realize, everybody's like, oh, metaphysics is woohoo. And I'm like, no, it's healing the nervous system. That's the connection between our metaphysical tools and the energy tools and the human body. That's the link. Well, what's the nervous system? The nervous system is the brain and the electrical activity between the brain and the nerves of the body. Those two things are greatly impacted by the energy fields in our energy systems. And so I'm just going to review the energy systems real quick, baseline. We have our chakra system, which is the 7. I'm going to emphasize the 7 chakras. There are a whole lot more. But in terms of our society, we have 7. And let's see if I can get a good picture of that going in. And so we have those centers are, next time I'll have colorful pictures, next time I'll do this. They have the 7 centers, those energy centers, that are running through our bodies that are connected to the auric field in many different ways. But those are the 7 centers. We also, this is more Hindu focused, more in terms of where it's classified, history-wise. We also have the meridian system, which are like energy channels through the body. And then we also have our auric field. And our auric field are layers of energy that surround our body that interact, that are tied in with our chakras. Okay, so those are the 3 systems that I'm thinking about when I'm thinking about how do I help somebody align their energetic field. There's another more spiritual component that comes in here, and that is things like energy attachments to past people, whether it be family, people that we've intimately interacted with. It could be past loved ones. It depends on how far and what your spiritual belief systems are, but there is another more esoteric, more spiritual, metaphysical piece to this that ties into our energy systems, if that is your spiritual belief system. I don't bring it in those tools unless people are really in the same alignment. But in terms of getting people to get better, if they're not getting better when I'm doing all the energy stuff, then I will suggest some of the more spiritual tools if they're open to it. Because for me and many people, if there's one of those hidden energy drainers or scramblers in your energy field, the nervous system cannot heal correctly. There have been some phenomenal doctors in the past that have done phenomenal work. Dr. Nelson did the emotion code, which this is the emotion code chart. We're going to do a little bit of that today. With the first part of this, I'm just kind of introducing the tools. We'll do some examples. And then the next part of this is that we'll work on, I'll work on you in whatever way you would like me to. And I just started to do this in healing groups and at the corporate level, and I've just seen some amazing results with doing this in a group setting. And so you can even get this chart online, but he has amazing work, Dr. Nelson, Bradley Nelson. He has a book called The Emotion Code, which gives a great description of this. And he also has a sequel called The Body Code. And that body code is actually an interactive manual that teaches you how to do this technique. You can do this with a pendulum as well, not just the muscle testing. And so anyway, great work. This was my first experience with an energetic tool that was a little bit out there on my own body. And so I've seen fabulous work. We will do some examples of that in a second. I'm just kind of going over things. All of these tools here are frequency tools. And these are things that we can use in our everyday life to help clear energetic debris from our different energy systems, to help our nervous system work better, and to help our emotion. So when we use these emotional tools on our energetic field and ground our nervous system, what happens is that our emotions always feel better. One of the questions I have people do before a treatment and after is I have them rate their emotions, because it's the awareness thing. And I've seen people improve their emotions between 50 to 80% in one session. So this piece of it is huge. One day I'm going to have the technology to prove what I'm doing, both at the brain level, because people are like, that's all nice, but what's the science? Well, let's do some objective measurement, right? Because I'm a scientist. And I'm looking into different, but in terms of forming a nonprofit to get the funding, especially around the brain. And so one of the things that people often don't realize is that the functioning of the brain is very much dependent on brain signaling. There's a phenomenal doctor out there called Dr. Robert Malalo, and he fixes kids' brains, and he does amazing work. That book changed my life. I usually carry it around. I think it's in the car somewhere. But it's called Disconnected Kids. And what he proved was that by balancing the signaling and the signaling with the nervous system, the diagnoses that these kids were getting around their brain were going away. And so that's my dream, to be able to do that with a nonprofit. I love his work. That book changed my life, helped heal my brain in so many ways. And so this concept of evening out this energy field and evening out our brain signaling can drastically impact every single area of our lives. And I don't know where I'd be today if I didn't have these tools. And so I'm just going to go through some of the tools, both the metaphysical tools and the spiritual tools, and then we'll do some interactive kind of stuff with it, and then we'll go into the deeper kind of healing individually, depending on what you'd like to do. All right. So the first one is the emotion code. This can be used to identify through muscle testing where the emotions are stuck in the body, and then you can use a magnet, a very high-powered magnet, to remove the energy. And you can use this. In the beginning, I used a refrigerator magnet. I was not fancy in the beginning. And so that's how I was taught. Somebody at Wings Bookstore. A lot of these came, I saw these at Wings Bookstore coming through over the 20 years I volunteered. You can use a magnet, swipe it down the governing meridian, and clear the emotional block. And you can muscle test before and after, and we'll do demonstrations of these. I'm just going to review, yes?
You can use your crystals that I activated last night as well.
Yes, different things can work. I find that the high-powered magnet works, I feel it's a little stronger, but it doesn't have to be, you know what I mean? But yes, you could do it even with your mind if you want. But I find for me, the magnet, strong magnets work for most people. Let's see, you can also use light. Think about, energy is a frequency. I often use these are more, I can use this to clear, especially the white light, helps clear the energetic field, and you can dissolve energy attachments. That's more spiritual nature, but the light frequency. Essential oils. When I first encountered essential oils, I was like, this is a joke. I was like maybe 6 years ago, I had a girlfriend that would come at me with essential oils all the time. And I'd be like, no, not another essential oil. Until I met a chiropractic neurologist team at a conference, and it was a father-daughter team that used the essential oils to modulate the brain. And I went, oh, it gave me another brain tool because I had severe ADHD patterns in my brain. So much so, like going to chiropractic school was so hard because I had to visually format all the information they taught auditorily. Anyway, so it gave me a tool. So essential oils can be used not only from a brain rewiring perspective, but it also can, from a frequency perspective, help align specifically also the chakras and to clear the auric field. I often use certain essential oils to help make my auric field stronger because I'm so sensitive and I absorb people's energies. But also, if I use certain essential oils for the heart and I put it during a session, 9 times out of 10 people will cry because it's moving energy out of the heart chakra. So these are powerful frequency tools if we use them that way. Let's see, what else do I use? I really started to get into the pendulum. I have a really cool life story around the pendulum. And like I said, I'm a scientist by nature, and I'm like 1,000% skeptic, all right? Until the tools save something in my life, and then I have to believe in them, you know? So, and ironically, all these tools have greatly helped me. I mean, like I said, I wouldn't be here without them. So, when it comes to the pendulum, I have a wonderful dear friend who's part of my spiritual family, Leslie Smith. And she introduced me to the pendulum work with the intuitive piece component to it. And I was always fascinated, and I was amazed at how grounded I would feel and clear after a pendulum session with her. So then, and I was, you know, like I said, even though I see it work and I feel it on my body, I'm always skeptic. Like, oh, that's nice and whatever. Until mold took out my brain for 3.5 months. Okay, so here I am, my brain is not working. If you knew that hundreds of thousands of dollars, and the hundreds of thousands of hours I've invested in my brain, you got my attention when you take my brain out, universe. And so I went to one of her online healing sessions with the pendulum. And I thought, oh, here it is, like virtual, right? Which for me, I'm a little bit even more hokey about. And I did this session, and I was like, I had no idea what I was going to do. I was at a place where I was so terrified of my life. And I went to this pendulum session. After that, and she selected me out of the audience, and she cleared energy from my gallbladder meridian. That meridian goes through the brain. I did a motion code on myself, and I did some acupuncture on myself, and I came out of the brain issue. And that was literally 3.5, 4 months even. Could not function, brain would not work. I don't think I've ever been more terrified. All right. So then I became fascinated with the pendulum work. Like, how did that happen? How did she be able to move, that energy and bring my brain back? And then I went to some of her trainers, and I got training, went to a 3-day training, and I got additional training in the pendulum. Now I use it all day long in different ways. And so it really taught me that our energy systems could be influenced with our mental intention and that we could use the pendulum to guide us in energy work around ourselves. I believe I'm starting to set up a pendulum class for this month in Palm Harbor. It'll be virtual and in person. But I'm amazed at what this simple thing did for my mind and my emotions and everything. I went through a lot of trauma as a kid, like extreme, both physical, sexual, emotional, neglect, severe. And so as an adult, I have to use emotional healing and balance and regulation tools in many different ways just to be able to function out in the world. Because when you go through that level of trauma, especially on your brain and nervous system, but on your emotions, your development is so different than somebody that didn't have that severe trauma. So I use variations of these tools every single day to ground my nervous system and be out in the world just to be able to function like everybody else. Like it's not an option for me. And this pendulum was such a powerful tool that like I said, I use it at least 3 times a day. And I'm amazed at the power of it. Let's see what else I got. I use the frequency of stones to ground the nervous system. Like when I have somebody on my table, specifically for the chakras. I learned this from Reverend Kimberly Harrell, who was a phenomenal Reiki healer. And so there are different tools, and you place them in different areas. That not only helps for me because of the trauma experience, my auric field loves to detach and expand away. It likes to check out of the body because that's how I survived some of it, right? And so the stones help remind also my brain that I am in a human body, as much as I like to be in a spiritual body and be out here, right? But and you can help align the chakras in different ways with the frequency of different stones.